Now, to your knowledge, there were never any needles as part of this entire controversy or cotton balls that had any B12 or lidocaine on them, right?
One more time, please.
There were never any cotton balls or needles produced in this matter that had any B12 or lidocaine on them.
I would say no to that.
Right. You'd say no, there were, or you agree with me?
I would say that I don't believe there are any produced.
Right. And you don't know of any needles or cotton balls that have lidocaine on them, to your knowledge?
Again, I don't know about that.
Okay. Now, I just want to ask you a couple more questions about this because I want to understand your position. Are you saying that it is impossible for McNamee to put steroids in your body? You would know that you would know that, and therefore you reject that possibility.
Yes.
Okay. And your position is that no steroid, maybe other than, forget about cortisone, no steroid has ever been injected into your body by anyone, to your knowledge?
I've never taken performance-enhancing steroids or HGH.
Right. Okay. And you have no reason, to your knowledge, to believe that they've been put in your body?
I am positive they haven't.
Okay. Now, let's mark this one, all right? The telephone. We have a new tape, right? Good, thanks.
This is plaintiff's 9.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's a transcript.
Thank you.
Produced by Rusty Hardin and Associates of a January 4th, 2008 telephone conversation between you and Brian McNamee, January 4th, 2008. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes.
And there's a telephone conversation that that was recorded on your behalf?
Yes.
And who recorded it?
My lawyers.
The lawyers, Mr. Hardin?
Yes.
And who was present when it was recorded?
I was present. I believe Rusty was there, and one or two other gentlemen, I think men, not sure who though.
Randy Hendricks, was he present?
I don't believe Randy Hendricks was present.
Was Mr. Householder present?
I don't believe so.
Do you have any knowledge of who the other men who were present, or women who were present, of the other people who were present?
There were men, and I believe from Rusty's office here.
Were they investigators, Belk and Yarborough?
I'd be guessing.
Do you know if they were the same investigators who produced a tape recording of an interview with McNamee at his home earlier in December?
I don't know that.
Or around the time, just before the Mitchell report came out?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And who did the technical arrangements? Was it done from this office?
No.
Where was it done from?
From my house.
And who set up the technical arrangements?
I'm not sure I understand that.
Well, the recording device and the process of making sure that this could be recorded properly.
That was by Rusty's office.
Okay. By the two gentlemen who were there with you, or?
I believe so.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, remember, he didn't say Billy Belk was. You used the word plural investigators. Jim Yarborough was, but I don't believe Billy was there. You put investigators in the question, plural.
Okay, so do you know if Yarborough was there? You don't know Belk or Yarborough by sight? Or
Oh, I do. I
You-
just don't remember who, right off the top of my mind here while you're asking me the question, who else was in the room.
Okay. And did you prepare for that phone call?
No.
You didn't have discussions with your lawyers about what would be said in that phone call?
No, not what was said, but as far as prepare, I was returning a phone call from Brian McNamee, so if that's being prepared, and I waited till they got ready to record it before I called him.
Why did you record it?
Because he asked me to call, and I had no idea what he was going to say.
And why didn't you just have the phone call with him and not have a recording of it?
That was on advice from my lawyer.
Okay. And was there any discussion? I'm not asking you what they said. I want to know whether you had an understanding of the purpose of recording the call.
My understanding of the call?
Yeah, your understanding of the purpose of recording the call.
My understanding, because I had no idea what was going to be said by Brian McNamee.
Well, what could he say that you were concerned about?
I'm not sure. I had no idea what he was going to say.
And what, was there any effort on your part to get him to say anything?
No. I was returning his phone call that he
He left a message for you, right?
did.
And this is the first time you talked to him and the only time you talked directly to him after the Mitchell report, right?
I believe so.
And you hadn't talked to him prior to the Mitchell report for many weeks. Is that correct?
Again, I don't know the time. But
When's the last time you remember talking directly to Brian McNamee?
again, I'd be guessing.
Weeks, months before, right?
Maybe.
Right. Now, are you aware that Brian McNamee spoke to one of your agents, Jim Murray, prior to the issuance of the Mitchell report?
I believe I heard that, yes.
Did you read a transcript of a recorded call of that conversation?
I would imagine at some point I did.
Were you, sorry.
I'm not for sure. Or maybe I've heard a part of a recording.
And were you aware that at the time of that call, prior to the Mitchell report, that call was being recorded?
I think I learned that later.
You learned it later. Were you being represented at that point, prior to the Mitchell report?
By Randy Hendricks. Randy's my lawyer. He's always been my lawyer for 20-something years.
When did Mr. Harden come into this matter?
Oh boy, shortly thereafter, I believe is, again, I'm getting, dates might have been December.
Shortly after the phone call with Murray and McNamee?
I didn't have a phone call with Murray.
No, I'm saying the phone call between Murray and McNamee. Was it shortly after that Mr. Harden got into this?
I don't know the dates, but I know once I talked to Randy Hendricks, Rusty and them were also brought in.
Okay. And when you first talked to Randy Hendricks about the issue of steroids in baseball and Mitchell, did that have anything to do with the Murray call to McNamee?
Not sure I understand that.
Well, I'll try and rephrase it. When is the first time that you talked to Hendricks about the Mitchell investigation?
I'm not sure when I talked to Randy.
Or what did it concern the first
about
time
that.
you can remember?
I think it was Mitchell's investigators, and this was, again, I don't remember the dates because it seemed like it was after the fact. So he told me that.
Don't you
Oh,
go into
okay.
anything that Randy Hendricks told
All
you.
right.
Okay,
So What? Did there come a point prior to the Mitchell report when you became aware that Mitchell was investigating steroids in baseball and that you were going to be named as a user?
I don't know that.
PEDs in baseball. You don't know what?
I don't know that there was a time that he was going to name names, or again, it's all running together for me, but I believe at some point there was investigators that wanted to talk to the attorneys of some players.
Right, and do you know whether you were given notice of the fact that you were going to be named in this report as someone who used performance-enhancing drugs, and that they wanted to give you an opportunity to come in and respond to that accusation?
Object to the form.
You may answer.
I don't know when Mitchell's investigators sent either phone call or paperwork to ask to visit with either Randy or myself. And again, I always thought it had to deal with the LA Times report, which I knew wasn't true, and it was found not to be true. So I'm kind of on that timeline there.
I'm not asking you when, at this point. I'm asking you more whether you remember, prior to the Mitchell report coming out, you having an opportunity to respond to these accusations.
Object to the form.
Again, I believe Randy Hendricks told me about.
Excuse me.
Oh, jeez.
Objected on attorney-client.
Did you not, well, there's a lot of testimony about this previously, but did you at some point decline to talk to the Mitchell people on advice of counsel?
I believe so.
Right.
And again, I was under the assumption that it was about the LA Times report, or the Grimsley affidavit.
So you were saying that you declined to talk to them thinking they were questioning you about the Grimsley affidavit, and you never knew that you were going to be named in a Mitchell report that was to come out later on in the fall, or in December.
A little bit confusing, but I didn't know that.
Can I ask a few, the two different ways here? So if you could specify to him in your question whether you're talking about learning from the Mitchell, about the Mitchell people wanting to talk to him, or learning after his investigators talked to McNamee. Those are two different ways.
I understand. We're going to get to the McNamee part. I'm just trying to figure out when you believe, well, whether you believe that you were told that you were going to be named in the Mitchell report and you would have an opportunity to respond to that before it came out.
Object to the form.
You can answer that.
I'm not sure if what I believe is that I believe that investigators for Mitchell's firm had either told Mr. Hendricks or possibly the Players Association that they wanted to speak to some players. I don't know that I know if I knew at that time my name was going to be named in any of this.
Okay. At some point, you told 60 Minutes, didn't you, that, well, you told 60 Minutes that you did not talk to Mitchell investigators because on advice of counsel.
I would say that's correct.
Right. And at that time, on advice of counsel, did you realize that the choice not to talk to the Mitchell report on advice of counsel was an opportunity to respond to accusations that were made by McNamee?
I don't know that I was made aware of that. Again, his investigators were just that. I don't think I found out about names until Mitchell produced a report, an actual report.
Okay, so if I told you that your agents received correspondence from the Mitchell people, the investigators, specifically stating that you were going to be named in the Mitchell report, do you recollect that?
Object to the form. I don't think they did that.
Well, I think
You
we have
sure?
documents that say that.
Can I see it?
Yeah.
I don't think it says
They're-
that.
they're-
Richard. Never
yeah,
says
they're
they're going to
let-
be named. He never said that.
Well, he says that he says that they were made accusations about him. I think you're right. I stand corrected that he was going to be named, but there were accusations that the Mitchell investigators were in fact investigating that you were using steroids, and that you would have an opportunity.
Object to the form.
Steroids are performance-enhancing drugs, and that you would have an opportunity to respond to that prior to the issuance of the Mitchell report.
Again, I'm not sure what they were, what the investigators were accusing or not accusing. I was under the assumption it was about a report from the Grimsley issue.
So all this time that there was this back and forth with the Players Association and correspondence between your agents and the Mitchell people, up until the time that you were told about the Murray, sorry, I lost it. Thank you. Up until the time you were told about the conversation between McNamee and Murray, you were under the impression that it was only about the Grimsley affidavit.
I guess I assumed that. I'm not sure that I saw any documents or anything that you said were mailed out. I'm not sure that I can remember even seeing any of that.
So and your agents never told you anything about the fact that this Mitchell report wasn't going to be about accusations having to do with the Grimsley affidavit?
Again, Randy Hendricks is my lawyer.
And
I don't.
I'd ask you not to testify on anything he said.
All I'm going to
And-
say is you had no understanding from anyone, agents
I don't
or
think
anyone
that-
else, that the Mitchell investigators were looking at you with respect to accusations that you were taking performance-enhancing drugs having nothing to do with the Grimsley report.
Again, they may have. I just can't remember how the sequence came about.
But you chose, as you said on 60 Minutes, not to respond or talk to the Mitchell people.
That's right, under advice of my lawyer.
All right. Now, what? Well, no, let it go. Do you have any knowledge that your agent wanted you, was notified that Senator Mitchell wanted to talk to you, or his people wanted to talk to you about allegations of PED use?
Again, I think it was investigators that he told me about, and I assumed it was for the LA Times issue.
And you never had an understanding until later that it wasn't about the LA Times issue. Is that correct?
I think later.
Right. And by this time you had been cleared on the LA Times issue, right? You were not part of the Grimsley affidavit.
No, that comes later. Comes after the report.
I'm not
The
sure.
clearing,
Oh.
the magistrate's issue comes
Sorry,
after.
my mistake. I withdraw the question. All right. In a July 13th, 2007 letter from Piper, DLA Piper, to the Players Association that listed your name, and I quote, it says, "We have received information that this player allegedly used performance-enhancing substances sometime between 1998 and 2001 while a member of the Toronto Blue Jays and New York Yankees." Did anybody ever tell you that that was in a July letter with your name listed in it?
And what is it?
July 13th, 2007.
But I didn't hear, you said it was mailed to me?
It was.
Where was it?
It was mailed to the Major League Baseball Players Association. Did you ever hear of that information from the Players Association that I believe is, right, did you ever hear of that in July?
I'm not sure what the date was. I may have been told that after the fact.
After when?
After,
Can you give him the time frame of when the report came out? So he
The report came out in December, the middle of December, December 13th, 2007.
yeah, I just can't remember the dates. I just remember being told about investigators wanting to see me.
Right.
And then now you're saying there's already a report about it, so.
Well, no, I'm saying that they sent a letter to the Players Association, which I believe was sent on to your agent, that named you and had that quote in it that I just read you, that you were alleged to have, that they received information that this player, meaning you, allegedly used performance-enhancing drugs sometime between 1998 and 2001 while a member of the Toronto Blue Jays and New York Yankees.
And again, I don't know when that was sent or when I was told about it. I don't know the dates.
You have no recollection of being told about that prior to the time the Mitchell report came out in December of 2007.
It sure could have been possible. I just remember when the report came out.
And you never said, I want to go there and clear my name before they put me in a report.
I think I said at some point, I said if I'd have known what Brian McNamee had stated about me to Mitchell or his investigators, whichever one, that I'd have been down there and definitely talked to him.
And you said that in Congress, right, or in 60 Minutes or somewhere else. You said it after the report came out, right?
I believe so.
You never said that before the report came out.
Again, I don't believe so. I just remember what you're saying.
Now, at some point, you remember this getting information about a call by McNamee to Murray some days before the report came out, that you and Andy Pettit were going to be named in the report?
Repeat what? How?
Yeah,
what
at some
form was
point.
it?
At some point, do you remember getting information from Murray or Hendricks that you were going to be named based on a call they had had with McNamee in the report?
I believe from Randy Hendricks.
Right. And you didn't call up McNamee and say, what's going on here?
I don't believe I did, no.
And he had been to your, well, he'd been talking to you about fishing in Cabo, is that correct?
This might have been before the report came out.
This is all before the report came out that I'm
Right.
talking about now. That you never called him up when you heard about Murray, the conversation with Murray where you and Andy were going to get named before the report came out, and said, Brian, what are you saying? What planet are you on?
I didn't. I don't believe I talked to him at that point. I think he called me or texted me that he was in Cabo to answer your question about some kind of, he was fishing or something.
Right. And you didn't get back to him and say, what are you talking about? You're going to falsely rat me out on something like this?
I don't know if that was before that.
Before what?
Before I heard, again, I don't know the timeline, but I don't know if that was before I heard or I had heard it and then after he texted me about fishing in Cabo. But by then, I think I'd already talked to my lawyers about something that was going on.
But you didn't call him up and man-to-man say to him, Brian, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to me? You're saving your own skin and putting mine in the soup?
Object to the form.
Again, I think that was after the fact that there was no communication going on.
Okay. And why was there no communication when something, from your point of view, as you claim, is so outrageous as him doing this to you?
I think for that fact alone, the comments that he made about me that weren't true.
Well, why wouldn't you call him up right before it all happened, before Mitchell came out and said, you better withdraw those, it's not true?
I did not call him. I was not going to be in touch with him.
Right. And you weren't going to hold him accountable for and try and head off a big problem in your life. Is that what your position was?
I'm not sure about that.
You read the transcript of the Murray-McNamee call at some point, did you not?
I don't believe I did.
Do you have any knowledge, do you have knowledge of the fact that in that call, McNamee is terribly apologetic, he hates what happened, he's expressing that he can't stand the fact that he had to rat you out, and that he would do anything to try and minimize it or repair it? Is that correct?
Excuse me, object to the form.
Yeah. Do you remember the substance of that, of his
I think
call?
I listened to a recording. I
Right.
don't remember hearing any of that. And
What do you remember hearing in the recording between McNamee and Murray?
I just remember them playing a recording that he stated that Andy and I had used HGH and steroids, and I said, absolutely not true.
Right. But did you hear him also say that he was being threatened with prosecution and that's why he said it? What? No, this was also
Not sure about that.
okay. Did you hear him say he'd try and do anything to avoid having this happen and be in the situation of putting you in jeopardy?
I did not.
And did you hear him say anything about feeling absolutely horrible about being put in this situation because if he lied to the feds, he'd go to jail?
Again, I didn't know. First of all, he didn't give me any drugs, so I don't know why he would have to worry about ratting me out. And number two, until later, I didn't realize to the extent of a drug dealer that he was.
So when you heard this and you knew from your point of view that he hadn't given you any drugs, why didn't you call him up and say, why are you lying about this, Mac? Stop it. Get off it. Tell them you're lying as you know you are. Why didn't you do that?
I think on the advice of my lawyer, Mr. Hendricks, when I first spoke to him, not to be in any communications with this guy again.
Now, at some point, you were in communication with him again, right? Directly. On June 4th, 2008.
With a phone call, I believe, yeah.
Right, and a tape recorded phone call. And you decided to call him back and have a direct conversation with him when he called you and left a message about his child being sick.
I believe I was on vacation and he texted me, and again, I'm not looking at it, but it sounded urgent and that his son was dying. Please call. Right. Something of that nature.
And then you arranged to have this call recorded when you called him back.
I believe I talked to my attorneys and told them what had happened and got advice from them.
All right, and based on that advice, you recorded the call that you subsequently had.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at Exhibit 9. Have you seen this transcript before?
I don't know that I have.
Have you heard a tape recording of the call?
Yes, I believe. Yes, I did. There was a press conference, yes.
That's
I
right.
believe- I
And
believe.
you played this call, the tape recording of this call this was a Friday, on the Monday press conference a couple days later, correct? After the weekend.
I believe so.
Mr. Harden was there, you were there, and you played it on an ESPN covered event.
I don't know that.
And that was the day after you filed a defamation case against Mr. McNamee here in Texas. Is that correct?
I don't know the dates, but
All right. Now, taking a look at this, where's mine? Yeah. Go to, if you would, page 7. McNamee on line 9 says, no, you treated me better. You treated me like family. From day one, I was family to you, and you treated me like that. See that?
yes.
And would you say the tone of this call up to that point was him trying to talk to you to get sympathy from you about his family situation?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay. And he says on line 15, that same page, bottom line is, I'm glad to hear your voice. And you say on line 20, I just need you to come out and tell the truth, right? You don't say what the truth is, you just say, tell the truth. Is that correct?
That's what I said here, yes.
Right. And he doesn't respond to that. He just talks about something else. Is that correct?
Again, I haven't read all the way through it.
Right. But right here, you say, I need you to come out and tell the truth. But let me ask you this. Why at that point didn't you say, tell them I never used PEDs or steroids or HGH? Why didn't you say that to him so he knows what you're asking him to do?
I think by telling him to come out and tell the truth says exactly that.
Well, as you know, he thinks the truth is that he injected you in 98, 2000, 2001, and that's what he's told the feds, and he's told that on pain of going to prison, right? So if you say tell the truth, what do you think that means to him?
I think exactly what I said right here. I think you need to come out and tell the truth.
Right, and you say, why don't you sign an affidavit? Why don't you come over here and tell my lawyers so that you never injected me and that this is all a lie?
I don't believe I said that.
Right, you didn't say that. You just said tell the truth, right?
Pretty
Right.
cut and dry.
And that's
yes.
right, and that's your truth and not his truth, right?
No, that's the truth. as far
Right.
as-
Well, you know, for him, he's sworn under oath that he injected you. And he's told feds on pain of criminal prosecution that he injected you. So why would he understand for you to say tell the truth that means that he didn't inject you? There's nothing in here where you say, you didn't inject me, Mac, so tell the truth.
Object to the form.
Is there anything in here that says that?
I think I say it plain as day.
You say plain as day that you never injected me? Show me anywhere in this thing where you say, you never injected me with steroids or PEDs.
I asked him to come to Houston or come and tell the truth. I
Right.
think he knows what that means.
Oh, you think he knows what that means?
I would
Okay,
think- I would imagine.
and so, is there any reason in the world why you wouldn't say to him on a call that you're recording that I want you to come here and say that you did not inject me with PEDs?
Again, I don't know what state he was in, but I think what I said right there is very clear.
And if you'd said what I said, you were afraid he would simply say, well, what do you mean, Matt? What do you mean, Roger?
Object to the
I
form.
injected you 20 times. I injected you in your apartment up in Toronto. I injected you in the hot tub in the Yankees. You know, I injected you with HGH in your apartment in New York. And you were afraid that was going to go on the tape recording that happened if you'd said something specific.
Not true.
All right. Now, take a look at the next page. And he responds to you down here on bottom of page 7, going over to page 8. I didn't take it. I didn't do anything. All I did was what I thought was right. I never thought it was right, but I thought that I had no other choice, put it that way. And then he talks about speaking to your guys, meaning Murray, I take it, and I laid it out for them, that this was happening. And then he says on line 10, whatever you want to do, just let me know what you want me to do. You know Brian has nothing to do with this. Brian meaning his son, right? Has
Okay,
nothing to do with this.
Excuse me, I'm
sorry.
here where he says,
Page 8, line 10.
okay, but I'm looking at, you said I'm not doing a book deal, or did we start? I'm not doing a book deal. Where do we start?
I'm starting with page 8, line 10.
Page 8.
That's where I'm looking now.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
at the bottom of page 7.
Sorry. Right.
Okay,
I
now,
read that before. He says, whatever you want to do, just let me know what you want me to do. Right? Page, that's not 10. And your answer is, I'm just like I said, I'm numb, my family's numb. Right? That's what your response is to that.
we're on page 8. I'm lost.
I'm sorry. Let me see if I
Page
can
8?
point it out to you.
What was the line? That's the only thing I'm missing. Page 8?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here, right 10, and then your response.
Okay.
You see that? He says, whatever you want to do, just let me know what you want me to do. And then you respond, I'm just like I said, I'm numb, my family's numb, right?
Yes.
Why don't you say, come down to Houston, sign an affidavit, tell everybody what the truth is. You did not inject me with PEDs. Why didn't you say that?
I think I did say that.
Oh, you think you said that?
Pretty close. I
Didn't
told
you
him
say,
to come
I'm
down
just
to,
like I said, I'm numb, my family's numb?
I said my family's numb, and I know at some point, I don't see it here,
Right.
but I asked him to come to Houston and tell the truth.
But the most you ever say to him is tell the truth. You never say what the truth is and what you want him to say, and specifically what he can do to help you out of this pickle. You never tell him anything.
I don't believe that I was in a pickle just because of one person's statements.
So at this point, you had never seen anything about the medical waste, had you?
I don't know that.
The medical waste came out after your congressional deposition, right, and before the congressional open hearing, public hearing.
I believe that's right.
Right. And at this time, you had one guy's word against yours, right? And you were going to battle it out head on head because there was no medical waste to deal with.
I was just defending myself.
Right. And you were defending yourself by not telling him what he had to do to help you, even though he was asking you, what can I do for you, Roger? You're my life. You're my future. I'm dead without you. I've got nothing. Right?
Well, first of all, I hope that's not the case.
Well,
That he was, that's something new to me. But again, I can't say it any clearer in here. I asked him to come to Houston and tell the truth.
are you saying that you had no knowledge of the fact that McNamee's success and career was linked inextricably to you?
Object to the form.
No, he told me he trained a bunch of guys and had all kinds of
A bunch of
stuff
guys,
for 'em.
any of them known as Roger Clemens, the
Well,
best pitcher of
I'm
the
not
era,
gonna-
right? Any of them give anybody credibility like you can give somebody credibility?
Object to the form.
I think other guys he worked with were very good athletes.
Right. But none of them of your caliber, and none of them had the devotion that you had to him, right?
Object to the
I
form.
don't know that.
Well, you were pretty devoted to him on a consistent basis for about 8 years, isn't that right?
I worked with him, yes, for
And
sure.
you were his meal ticket, right?
Well, again, I hope not.
Well, you were paying him hundreds of thousands of dollars over that period of
Object
time,
to the
right?
form.
Again, I don't know if I was the only one paying him, but I paid him for his services, yes.
And you paid him many tens of thousands of dollars, probably well over $100,000, right?
Object to the form.
For his services.
I would say yes.
Okay. And he stayed in your pool house on regular bases in series of workout sessions off season, right?
Off and on, yes.
Right. And he trained you during the season when you were on the same team with him.
Along with everybody else, yes.
Right. And he was in your apartment in New York City, was he not?
He was a few times.
And you gave him, and he gave you, you trusted him to give you B12 and lidocaine shots, according to you, right?
Yes.
And you could have got those shots from other trainers and doctors in the teams where you were playing,
Yes.
because they were available. But you had McNamee do it for you, right?
Yes. He gave me a couple shots,
Right.
yes.
So you had a very close relationship as a trainee situation with McNamee all the way up through these events, right?
With McNamee and others, yes.
And what others? Who others?
Other trainers.
Any
sure.
other trainers that had as much role in your life as McNamee? Can you name one?
Oh, sure.
Who?
He wasn't even a trainer. Steve August.
What?
I trained with Steve August.
On as much as you trained with McNamee?
Pretty much, yeah. I would say pretty close.
Over what period of time?
My Boston years.
Boston years.
Yeah.
But after
was
the
a great-
Boston years, the trainer you primarily trained with was McNamee, right?
I trained a lot with Brian McNamee, yes.
And you didn't
bet.
train with anyone else nearly as much as you trained with McNamee during the years after Boston.
I trained with the trainers and strength guys that were at every ball club as well.
You didn't praise them in the press like you praised McNamee, did you?
I don't think that I had the chance to, but I sure would have.
You said McNamee, you needed McNamee to Cashman, right?
Yeah, I believe I made a phone call or text to Brian, yes.
And you said you needed McNamee even after the Florida incident and even after he injected your wife. I showed you the press report of your quote. You want to keep training with him. This guy's the best. I need him.
Right.
You need him to get through your elderly years as a pitcher, right?
Again.
Okay. So now, you know perfectly well, do you not, that his life and his success is largely dependent on his relationship with you.
Object to the form.
That's a strong statement. I
All right.
would hope not.
You know I know you would hope not, but you know that he is very dependent on your income, number one, and your association for all his other schemes of making money, right?
Again, he was a strength coach or trainer or catcher with the New York Yankees before I ever met him, so.
But he was trying to do vitamins and supplements and all kinds of things, and associating with you gave him credibility, right?
I don't know what he was trying to do.
All right. But he told you that he wanted you to be in the Nutravite stuff. He wanted to play on your fame and your achievements to help himself be a figure and make money.
Not sure about that.
All right. You have no knowledge of that kind of activity on his part and his need to be associated with you.
Again, I hope that not to be the case.
But it was the case, nevertheless, right?
Object to the form.
You know it to be the case.
I don't know that to be true.
All right. Now, so you, so when he came and in this phone call, and he was offering you here for the first time on page 8, line 13, sorry, page 8, line 10, whatever you want to do, just let me know what you want me to do. The only thing you can say is, I'm just, like I said, I'm numb, my family's numb. That's your response to that, right?
That's what I said here, yes.
Right. And he knows that he's under federal scrutiny, and he's lost you as a friend and as a client, right? He's trying like heck to save his life, his relationship with you, by saying, I'll do whatever you want me to do, right?
Object to the form.
I don't know what his state of mind was through this.
You can't tell from him, from this statement?
Object to the form.
Okay, then let's go a little further. Let's look down at page 8, line 22, where McNamee says, You know, like I said, I'll fly out tomorrow to talk to you face to face. Whatever you want me to do, what do you want me to do? Roger Clemens, sigh. That's all you did was sigh when he said that, right? That's what this shows.
Object to the form.
You didn't say, get down here to Houston, tell the world that I never used this stuff, that I'm the greatest baseball player who never used steroids,
Object to the form.
right? You never said anything like that or any substance of that or anything like it.
Oh, I told him to come to Houston. I was having a press conference to
Well, you
tell the
didn't
truth.
Right, but you didn't say here, come down. He says he's going to come down. You didn't say, come on down. All right, I'll get you a ticket. Get your butt down here. You didn't say that.
I didn't. I don't
Right,
believe I said
okay.
that.
So on the next page, page 9, number 1, line 1. For the third time, he says, Brian McNamee, tell me what you want me to do. Tell me what you want to do. To do. Roger Clemens, I don't know. I'm just. Not get on a plane, get down here and tell the truth, or tell that I've never used PEDs, right? You never say anything like that. Right? Next line, you say, like I said, you treated me better than anybody. You treated me, I learned from you how to raise my kids. This guy idolized you, right?
Object to the form.
Again, preceding the whole thing about his son dying and comments like this, again, I didn't know what a state of mind he's in.
But you knew from your 8-year, well now it's what? It's almost 10 years, right? It's 98 to 2000, almost beginning of 2008. From your 10-year relationship with this guy, that he idolized you. He modeled his own fathering activities after you, he says.
Object to the form.
Right?
Again, I hope that he had father skills before he met me at the age he was at, and I was always taught to treat people like family and treat them fairly.
And you treated him fairly, and you treated him like family, right?
I treated him fairly, yes.
And then he betrayed you, in your view.
Again, he made false accusations about me.
All right. Now, so then on line 7, you say, well, and then he says on line 8, I learned from you how to raise my kids. And then on line 10, you say, I didn't do it. This, you know, all this stuff. I just, like I said, I'm numb to everything, and we get, you know, Deb is, you know, she's a mess, and so forth. You don't say, get down here, straighten this out, you're ruining my family, you're ruining my life, fix this, Mac. You owe it to me to fix this. I made your life great for 10 years. You owe me. Fix it. You didn't say anything like that or any substance, any message like that, did you?
Again, I told him to come to Houston and tell the truth.
Yeah, but you didn't tell him here, and, you know, we'll go on. I think you told him to come down. What did you say you came to Houston, come down to Houston? We'll get to that. I think you say, I don't think you say come down to Houston and tell the truth, but we'll get to that.
Look at page 15.
Yeah, what?
15.
All right, page 15? We'll
Line
get
17.
there. We'll get there. Now, that was the third time you said that what do you want me, tell me what you want me to do. Let's look at the fourth time he says it. On line 20, page 9, Brian McNamee, Roger, what do you want me to do? Roger, 22, I just wish you'd, McNamee, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do for the fifth time? Roger, line 25, I've got, Mac, I'm doing a press conference, and on Monday, and then Brian McNamee, line 3, do you want me to go? Do you want me to show up? Page 5. I'm just going to tell the truth, flat out tell the truth. You don't say, yes, I want you to show up. You say here now you want him to come to Houston? Why didn't you say, I'll send you a ticket, come down here now? Why didn't you do that?
I believe I told him that I'm doing a press conference and he needs to come to Houston and tell the truth.
Well, he's offering to come. There are no arrangements made. And don't you want to know what he's going to say when he comes?
I would have loved it if he'd come down and told the truth.
Right. And you'd love it if he came down and said what was the truth, namely that he shot you up with steroids and PEDs.
That didn't happen.
Right. Well, you say it didn't happen, but all you're doing is telling him to tell the truth. And as far as he's concerned, as far as he knows from you, that's the truth. My point here is, Roger, and I want you to see if you understand this. Do you understand that by saying the truth, without saying what the truth is specifically, he just as easily could think that he shot you up?
I disagree with that.
Okay. Now, don't you know, do you not, how McNamee offered to Mr. Hardin's investigators who went down and saw him right before the Mitchell report came out? Did you read that transcript or hear the tape recording of McNamee that they made of him in his home and around his home and on telephone calls?
I did not.
Belk and Yarborough. Okay. Did you read the transcript?
I did not. I believe I was just got bits and pieces of it.
Right. Were you aware that he was doing his most to try and minimize everything? Roger, just admit it once or twice and this will go away, just like Andy did, and then it went away.
I didn't hear that.
All right. And for Belk and Yarborough, did you not know that he was saying, I'll do anything to make this go away? Roger is my whole life, and I want this to go away. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to be put in this position, and I had no escape. Words to that effect.
I'm not sure I heard that either.
All right. Now, all right, so what is, now if you just would do me a favor and look at the bottom of 10 and 11 where you talk about, where McNamee says, man, I told Murray, I told him his name, I told Murray, and there's a whole discussion. What is your understanding? There's rumblings about some guy with the Mets. Is this about Radomski? What is this about, to your understanding? It goes over to the top of page 12. What's your understanding of this exchange between you and Mac?
I believe this has to do with, well, again, it has to do with Randy Hendricks telling me something. I don't know.
Telling you factual information?
No, Randy Hendricks, I believe, said...
Wait a second. I don't want you to talk about what Andy said, but...
Well, it's not advice. It's, well, go ahead.
But he's not... Just read from 15 to the end to answer his question.
15 to the end?
Pardon?
What, line 15 or page 15?
Yeah, of the page you're on. I'm just asking him to read that.
Right.
Because I don't think he understands your question.
I'm just trying to find out what this is about. I don't really understand it myself.
But your guess was right.
About Radomski or something. Oh, yeah, what?
That's what I understand it to be. I believe there was a guy that worked for the Mets that, again, I believe McNamee was getting drugs from.
Right.
Or they were dealing drugs, or he was giving drugs to, again, that's what what I've since heard, that McNamee was getting drugs from this guy, and he was doing the drugs the guy gave him. I don't know what this means in here. I think this has to do with Randy. At one point, we were working out, and I said, hey, there's a guy in the news or somebody that they know about. And I asked him about the guy. I didn't know the name, and he said that he doesn't know who he is.
Well, isn't it a fact that you know that this guy Radomski, or the guy from the Mets, is the person who supplied the HGH which was injected into your wife?
I didn't know that.
Right. And that he supplied steroids for starting pitchers to McNamee.
I didn't know that.
Right. And that he supplied HGH that McNamee said he injected you in 2000, year 2000. You didn't know that.
I did not know
Right.
that.
Okay, so what are you asking him about here? What does the exchange mean here on bottom of page 10 over to 11, top of 12? Can you describe what he's trying to tell you as far as you understand and what you're asking him?
Are you asking me about the whole page?
Yeah, if you the substance of this exchange of information.
Well, I think I just said I asked McNamee during a workout right to his face that Randy asked me to call and ask who that is.
And you were mad at him for not telling you who it was, right? That's what comes out of this?
I think he said he didn't know who the guy was.
Well, and then later on, he apologized to you for not telling you who the guy was. I messed up on page 12, lines 6 and 7. I should have, right?
Yes. Brian says in line 6 that he said he got messed up and he should have,
He should have told you.
but he'd have to remember that.
And he tried to tell you before that on page 11 that he was trying to get you information about drug people when he was talking to Jim Murray in Starbucks in 2004, right?
I don't know about that.
You don't know anything about that. So you didn't understand him when he's talking here on line 14, page 11.
Where are we at?
Page 11,
Okay.
line 14, Brian McNamee. I told him, I sat down with him at Starbucks on the corner of where you used to live, and I told him the guy's name, and I told him, please don't tell Roger yet, but be careful, right? So he was trying to convey that he talked to Jim Murray and that he wasn't trying to keep it a secret, but, right?
Object to the form.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know the conversation that he had with Jim Murray or what he's rambling about here. I'm
Right.
just
You don't know
I'm just
anything
letting
about.
go.
You never got any information from Jim Murray about a conversation in Starbucks where they talked about drug testing and the fear that you might be testing positive.
Again, bringing back my memory from if that was on, if it was on a recording or something that was played, I just don't remember.
It's
it.
not a recording, no,
He's
just
asking if Jim Murray ever said anything to you about that.
Right.
I don't believe Jim Murray said anything about, and it can run together after the fact.
No,
but
he's talking about before.
okay.
Right. Okay. Now, and that he says also, so did you know, no, never mind, withdraw it. Going over to page 13. You say on line 10, I've got a press. I need somebody to come tell the truth. And I got this press conference on Monday that I've got to deal with next. And like I said, everybody's got ulcers here, and it's like, it's ridiculous. So, and like I tell everybody when I trained with, I enjoyed training with you. And I treat you like you were like I treated anybody else. I didn't know I was, and then McNamee says, I can't say over and over again, you treated me better than everybody else. And I couldn't have. Like I said, you treated me like family. You brought me into your house. I ate with your family. I helped with your school projects. I can't deny that. And I used how you was a dad to your kids. I tried to be like you, and I told people that. You know, that's the one thing, this is another. So you don't, then you respond, where are you right now? Brian says, where am I at? Roger, yes. Yeah, you're still in the east, you're saying, somewhere out east. And then it goes on, he's complaining about where he is. And he says on line 17 to you directly, everything I have to this day I have is because of you. See that?
I do.
And you don't say, no, that's not true. You're great on your own. You don't disagree with him, right?
I disagree with that. I mean,
Right.
again.
But you didn't say
I
you
don't-
disagree with it.
I didn't say it here, but I obviously disagree with
Right.
that.
And then line 19, you say, I'm just, like I said, Mac, I can't, I'm just, for the life of me, I'm trying to find out, why would you tell guys that I used steroids? From, not that you didn't, you don't say, what's fascinating about this, and I'm trying to get your understanding of this, is you don't say to him, why didn't you tell them that I don't use steroids? Not why did you tell guys that I use steroids, which is a betrayal of what he understands to be the truth.
Object to the form.
Now, what I'm suggesting to you is you are extraordinarily artful in your way of phrasing things so that he doesn't respond by saying, of course I shot steroids, that's not the matter. You're avoiding that like the plague, aren't you?
Object to the form.
I am not. It's obviously I've never been on a recorded call like this nature.
Yeah.
I don't think ever, but it's real choppy.
Right.
And I'm just letting him ramble, and again, I don't know what state of mind he's in.
It's not, you're saying, I'm trying to find out why you would tell guys that I use steroids. You're not saying that I didn't use steroids. You're just asking him why he told people that you use steroids.
Object to the form.
Right?
Again, I would think that he would understand that.
Really? Okay.
But I don't know what the frame of mind he was in. Like I said, it's pretty choppy, and we're just
all right.
letting him go.
So look at page 15, where line 19, you say, I just don't know why, and like I said, I've got the press conference Monday, and I need, somebody's got to come and tell the truth. Brian McNamee. Now, Roger, tell me what the fuck you want me to do. What do you want me to do? You tell him you want him to tell the truth. You tell him you got a press conference. He asks you what you want me to do. What do you want me to do? And what do you say? Your response is, I understand that. And Mac, listen to me. That's why I answered your email immediately. There's more. For me, there's more important things. I mean, those things are important to me. I just had my college coach son pass away. You don't say, get your butt down here and straighten this mess out and tell the world that you're lying about injecting me with performance-enhancing drugs.
Object to the form.
Did you say anything that's substance or in any way, shape, or form is like that?
I didn't. I asked him to come down and tell the truth. And
Right.
again, as you can see, I'm letting him, on the vice of counsel, letting him talk. And he also states that his son is dying again. I didn't know what kind of state of mind the guy was in.
Right. But he offered to do anything you wanted him to do. He offered to say virtually anything you wanted him to say. That's what he's offering. So why didn't you take him up on his offer?
I asked him to come to Houston and tell the truth.
And did you make arrangements for him to come to Houston?
Not on this. I did not.
And you never made arrangements to come to Houston. You never followed up on his offer to come to Houston.
I did not. I think once we ended the phone conversation, that was pretty much it.
So going down now to line 11.
Pick a time whenever it's convenient for you. We've been going a couple hours.
All right. Are we, what time is it? 3:30?
3:30.
just let me finish this thing, if I
Sure,
may. You got
sure.
10 minutes or so, is that all right?
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you, Rusty. I'm on page 16,
Thank you.
line 11. Brian McNamee, tell me what you want me to do. This is the 7th time he says it. Roger Clemens, yeah, I understand that, but you don't tell him what you want him to do. Then he says, for the 8th time, Brian McNamee, what do you want me to do? Roger Clemens, I understand that. Brian McNamee, I'll go to jail. I'll do whatever you want. This is the 9th time. Roger Clemens, I just need somebody to tell the truth, Mac. It's ridiculous, obviously. The 10th time, line 20. What do you want me to do now? Roger Clemens, it's ridiculous. Brian McNamee, what do you want me to do right now, Roger? The 11th time. Roger, you're just being ridiculous. Brian McNamee, what do you, who, me? Roger Clemens, no, I said everything. So what's going on here? He's offering to come down right now. He's offering to lie or go to jail or do whatever you want. And you don't say, come down, fix this.
Again, I think I'm just letting him ramble and talk.
All right. Was that a plan that you had beforehand?
I didn't know what was going to be said. He asked me to call him that his son was dying.
Right. On line 10, page 17, Brian McNamee, tell me what you want me to do. This is the 12th time he says it. Roger, 13, on line 13, Brian McNamee, I'm firing my lawyers, I'm getting rid of everybody, I have nothing. What do you want me to do? My wife is gone, my kids are gone. What do you want me to do? For the 13th time. Roger, I didn't do this, Mac. Let me just, Brian McNamee, fine. Roger Clemens, I didn't do it, and I need some, you know, like I said, I'm trying to get a direction, and I'm trying to comfort everybody. And like I said, you know what I think about your wife and your boys, you know that. And you don't say, and then you go on to say, and so I mean, just give me a little time here tonight, and just give me a little time. So you're not taking him up on his offer, right?
Again, I'm just letting him do whatever he wanted to do on the phone call as far as when he asked me to call.
But you never say to him, the truth is that you never injected me, and that's what I want you to say.
I told him I needed someone to come to Houston and tell the truth.
Right, but you never told him that the truth is that that you never injected me, and you never put PEDs in my body, and you got to come here and tell the truth.
Again, I think it was clear.
So on line 16, page 18, you say, so I just need somebody to tell the truth. Why wouldn't you say, I need you to come down here and tell that you never injected me? Why would you say somebody?
I'm not sure about that. I think, again, it was the rambling of the conversation. How
But somebody who, the only people at this point who know the truth, I guess, are Andy Pettit and you and McNamee. So
Object to the form.
Again, I don't know anything about that.
okay. On the last page, 19, McNamee on line 1, for the final time, the 14th time in this 19-page transcript. Just tell me what you want me to do. Just tell me what you want me to do.
Object to the form.
Okay. Roger Clemens responding. Let me just get back with you, bro. I just can't. I mean, I'm about ready to, you know, like I said, you know, I just wanted, again, I need to, you know, like I said, I'm with you with your boy and everything that's being said there, and I hear you, and I hear you. That's why I got back with you so quick, because that bothers me, and so let me just visit with some. And then it doesn't say who you're going to visit with. And McNamee says, and I knew you would, Roger Clemens. Let me just visit with some people, and we'll go from there. Now, you didn't make any arrangements, obviously, to have him come to Houston, did you?
I did not.
Press conference was scheduled already, right?
Could have been. I don't.
Well, you're
Yeah, I'm not
referring
sure.
to a press conference on Monday a
Sure.
number of times, so it was scheduled, right?
Okay.
And you never did get back to him, even though you said you were going to get back to him.
Again, it was so choppy and jargled. I mean,
No, you never got back to him later on. You never called him again or made contact with him again, so you bring him down and take him up on his offer to come to the press conference or do whatever you wanted him to do, right?
I did not.
Okay. And you, in this page, use the affectionate term bro to him, right? After this guy's in the midst of ruining your life.
Again, it was very choppy.
Why is it, Mr. Clemens, that you didn't call him out? You're not, you know, you're known for your courage. You're known for your ability to confront people. You're known for being able to handle tough situations, more difficult situations than this, with human beings. Why didn't you just call him out?
Object to the form.
Again, I got a text, or I believe it was a text or call from him. He said his son was dying, to please call him, I believe is the way he said it, in a very hurried manner, and that's when I called my counsel. So,
right. But at the same time, you're saying that your whole family's in a mess, and everybody's numb, and Debbie's having a terrible time, and this is, you're having a press conference, and you got to deal with the press conference, and you're not saying, Mac, you owe me to make this right. You don't ever say this. I just literally, I can't understand where your head was in this situation.
Object to the form.
And you have any explanation for what I'm saying? Other than the ones you've already given?
no.
Okay. We can take a break. Now, we referred a couple of times earlier to a conversation that you had with Brian Cashman after the loss to the Red Sox in the ALC championship in 1999.
You know, to make this easier, do you mind refreshing him what Brian McNamee testified to about that conversation? And because I felt like
Brian McNamee or Brian Cashman?
Brian Cashman,
I'm going to
excuse me,
give him the
about what
exhibit.
Brian Cashman testified to.
I'm going to give him the exhibit.
There you go.
Okay. And I want to, let's mark that as 10, is it?
Point of 10.
Yeah. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
And here's a copy for you.
Thank you very much.
And you don't have to read all through this. We're going to go to spots. I mean, you're free to read whatever you wish, but we're going to go to spots in it. And I'll represent to you that this was the part of the testimony of Brian Cashman at the trial in Washington, D.C. And he testified as called by the government. I don't know what date it is. Do we have the, just for identifying purposes, it's page 20. I've handed you an exhibit, plaintiff 10, which is 25 through 48 of his testimony, but I'm not sure of the day.
It's going to be a Friday.
12 on
It was Thursday, May 10th is what I have. Did he testify on more than one day?
I was pretty sure it was a Friday. Oh, no, he didn't he didn't work on Friday.
Right, so it was the last day of the week,
So
right.
you're right, it's going to be a Thursday.
Now, He, as you may be able to see on page 35, just reviewing it, I'm not going to read these portions of it. This was game 3 of the series, and the question is, you know, how did you perform, Roger Clemens? And his answer was poorly. He went 2 innings and left with an injury in his leg, to his leg in the game, and we lost that game. Gave up 5 or 6 runs.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 35.
Okay, thank you.
And then he goes on to describe that he spoke with you at some point after you were removed from the game, and that while the game was still going on, he went into the clubhouse to see you. And you had ice on you, and you were having problems with your right leg, probably a hamstring, he thinks, but I think there's also testimony that it was a groin injury. Some can be similar, I guess. And he's asked to describe the conversation he had with you, going over to page 37. And he said he asked you how you're doing, and dealing with this injury. And you say at line 5, and he says about you at line 5, and Roger, you know, was frustrated because obviously the performance, the game, trying to pitch through pain and the injury. And he broached the subject of Brian McNamee, who was the former strength coach that he had in Toronto. He talked about how, you know, he clicked with Brian McNamee. Brian knew his body well and knew how to train him and push the right buttons on him. This is Mr. Cashman's recollection of this conversation. Does that conform with yours so far?
Yes, I believe I remember Brian saying some of these things, yes.
Okay. And, but that's what you remember him saying at the trial, is that correct?
I believe so.
Do you remember that you have a different recollection of this conversation from that 3rd ALC game in Boston?
I just didn't really remember it until I heard Brian say something to this effect at trial.
Okay. He didn't, going on line 12 of page 37, he did not want to be in a position where, you know, he would be dealing with leg injuries and things of that nature. And he, meaning Roger Clemens, you, felt that, you know, asked if we would strongly consider hiring Brian McNamee from Toronto for the following year, so, you know, something like this wouldn't be happening. Question, line 17. What was his demeanor, Mr. Clemens's demeanor, like? Answer, 18. He was down. He was frustrated. You know this. He is a champion, and he just performed in a town poorly because of an injury more than anything else in front of people that he, you know, did so much for so long. I take it he's referring to the Boston Red Sox and the Boston town. And that that wasn't a performance representative of who Roger Clemens is and the type of performance you were used to seeing. Question, did he indicate that Mr. McNamee knew his body? Answer, yes. And the next page, line 1, this page 38, and did he indicate that Mr. McNamee would be able to keep him healthy? Answer, yes. That conform with your recollection of what happened on that day?
Yes, I'm sure I had a leg injury, sure.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
And then question, line 4, was it clear to you based on the conversation with Mr. Clemens that Mr. Clemens trusted Mr. McNamee? Yeah, answer, yes. Question, what did you do with this information that Mr. Clemens had provided you about wanting the Yankees to hire Mr. McNamee? Answer, line 9, I let Roger know that we would run it up the flagpole and we would, you know, revisit it another day. Question, line 11, and then did you? 12, answer, yes. 13. Question, did you hire Mr. McNamee on the spot? Did you assure Mr. Clemens that day, as he sat in Fenway Park, that you would hire Mr. McNamee? Answer, no. Why not? Answer, I wouldn't have had the authority, and it wasn't the time and place to have that type of discussion. And he was an employee of the Toronto Blue Jays. So he goes on. So there'd be a conversation for another day, he indicates. And then on page 39, line 10, we eventually hired Brian McNamee with permission of the Toronto Blue Jays to be our assistant strength coach for the 2000 season. And on line 17, question, was he qualified at that point in time to be a strength coach or an assistant strength coach for the New York Yankees, in your opinion? Answer, you know, it is hard to say. He was head strength coach for the Toronto Blue Jays, so I guess he would have to be qualified to be the assistant strength coach for the New York Yankees. Line 24. Question, let me back up for a moment and ask you, did you interview Mr. McNamee before you hired him? Line 1, page 40. Answer, no. And then line 8. Did Mr. Clemens ever tell you at any time that Mr. McNamee had medical training? Answer, no. Did you have any recollection of telling Cashman that there was medical training? Is this correct? That Brian had medical training? Brian McNamee.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Bottom of the page 40, 22. What were his duties and responsibilities? Answer, his meaning McNamee. His duties were to train Roger Clemens. 24. Now, but the title is assistant strength and conditioning coach. Page 41. Answer, yes. 2. Question, but he is hired to basically train one person? Answer, yes. Was that common? Was that uncommon? I'm sorry. Was that uncommon on line 4? Line 5. Answer, yes. And then jumping ahead, you don't have any reason to believe that his testimony is inaccurate so far, is that correct?
I don't.
Okay. Page 45, line 24, question.
I'm sorry?
Sure, page 45.
Okay.
Line 24, question. Are you familiar with an arrangement that Mr. Cashman would provide some of the compensation? And this is directed about Mr. McNamee's compensation. Over to page 46, line 1. Answer. My recollection was that we would hire him and he, meaning Roger Clemens, would reimburse us for his salary since he was hired to be training Roger specifically, and it was a created position. That's my recollection. Now, you testified earlier that you have no recollection of that. Does this refresh your recollection that the arrangement was that you would pay McNamee, notwithstanding the fact that he was formerly an assistant strength coach to the Yankees?
I think on line 24 you said Cashman was paying, but it's my name there.
I'm sorry. I meant you were paying.
Right, and I don't recall.
Line
Can you-
24,
yes.
are you familiar with an arrangement that Mr. Clemens would provide some of the compensation? Right, that's what the question is. And then Cashman answers, my recollection was that we would hire him, and he, meaning you, I believe, would reimburse us for his salary. Is that something that refreshes your recollection about the arrangement for Brian McNamee with the Yankees?
It doesn't. I don't believe that happened. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that happened.
In order to get him there, would you have been willing to take money out of your own pocket to pay him?
I thought that he was wanting to come back. I don't think that I would have. No, I think that he would have. Again, when you read this here, I believe that he wanted to. This is '99, so he was
Right.
still with the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
That he had expressed to myself and maybe others he wanted to come back to the New York Yankees to be closer to his family. So.
What about the first part of what we've just read, where he said, where you're saying to him, I really want him back because he knows my body, he knows how to push my buttons, he knows how to train me. Wasn't that the main reason that the Yankees hired him, because you made that request as Roger Clemens?
Again, yeah, I would say that was part of it for sure.
Right. Okay. They would have never hired Brian McNamee but for your desire to have him help you in a tough situation.
Brian, and I don't know what tough situation was. Brian was hired back, and he worked with, unlike was said there, he worked with just about everybody. He caught different bullpens. I think he trained guys, so it wasn't just he and I one-on-one.
Well, I understand that he worked with other people, but he was hired for you, wasn't he not?
I don't know that. I don't know any other conversations with, say, Andy or any of the other guys. That, again, Brian McNamee was a New York Yankee well before I even knew him, and he knew more of the guys on the Yankees than I did.
Now, do you remember that there came a time when, after the congressional hearings, there was a report put out by the Democratic group in the hearings, and then there was another report put out by the Republican group in the hearings? Do you remember anything about that?
You know, again, I may have heard a few of reports that were sent out. I don't.
Did you ever read any of those reports?
I don't believe so. And again, unless there was a blurb or something of somewhere.
Well, let me represent to you that one of the things that the Democratic report relies on to conclude that you misled the committee when you testified in front of the committee is the fact, they say, that Pettit said that you told him that you used HGH. That's one of the things they relied on. Are you aware that they relied on that?
Again, I'm not sure that I read the entire two documents, if at all.
Are you aware that they were pointing that out as a reason for their conclusions?
Again, from one side did and one side didn't.
Well, one side did and one side didn't reach a conclusion, right? So the Democrats, they also said in this report that McNamee had named Andy Pettit as somebody that he'd given HGH to, which Andy Pettit admitted, correct?
Did you say?
Andy Pettit admitted that Brian McNamee gave him or injected him with HGH.
Yes, I was aware of that.
Right. And that Chuck Knobloch admitted that Brian McNamee injected him with HGH.
Not sure if I learned that until much later.
Well, wasn't that in the Mitchell report?
Again, I didn't read the entire Mitchell report. I read, from what I can remember, what was in the Mitchell report about me.
And along with you, in the portion about you, did it not state that McNamee had said and that Knobloch had, well, later on, that McNamee had said that he had injected Knobloch with HGH?
Could have. Okay.
Now, do you remember a time when, at the congressional hearings in the public portion, that it was stated that there was a confirmation by Chuck Knobloch that McNamee had injected him with HGH?
Could have been.
Okay. And Pettit, of course, submitted the affidavit and had been in a deposition, correct?
That's right. It
you
was
remem-
something read from Andy's, I believe.
Right.
Comments.
And do you remember that Knobloch came into a deposition before the big public event and brought his son in and said, you know, when you do something like this, you got to own up to it?
Objected to form, and he would know about it.
Well, I just want to know if he knows about Knobloch having brought his son in to the deposition so the son could learn something from his father agreeing that he had used HGH.
I'm not sure I know about that.
Okay. Now, can you think of any reason whatsoever that Andy Pettit, that Brian McNamee would name Andy Pettit and Chuck Knobloch and you and be lying about you but telling the truth about them?
Objected to form.
You can answer.
I don't.
Is there, why would anybody do that to bite the hand that feeds them the most and be correct about the people that fed him much less, to use the metaphor of people that he worked with?
Objected to form.
You can ask.
I had no knowledge about Andy or Chuck Knobloch, so
Well, you learned that Andy was going to admit using HGH as Mac had alleged well prior to the congressional hearings, right?
I did.
He was for a time represented by your lawyer, Rusty Hardin, right?
Correct.
And in the context of that, you learned that he was going to admit having been injected with HGH by McNamee,
I did.
right? And Rusty Hardin went on to represent you and no longer represented Andy Pettit as a result of that fact.
I believe that's what happened.
Right. So you knew about Andy shortly after the Mitchell report came out, right?
Again, I'm not sure when, but when I was with visiting with counsel, I was,
It came up.
yes.
And in fact, you knew about Andy when either in Kissimmee or in Atlanta, when he said, what are you going to say? I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to tell them that McNamee shot me up.
Object to the form.
Well, there was a conversation that you testified about earlier, right, where he came in and, in the course of asking you what you were going to say, admitted that he'd been injected by McNamee.
Not sure that he said that.
Oh, you don't think he admitted anything to you when he had that conversation?
Again, I don't remember. I don't know that I remember that.
And you don't think his coming in and asking you what you were going to say was a result of his own worries?
I'm not sure what he, everything that he was worried about. I just remember that conversation in Atlanta. And I believe that had to do with the, again, what I remember, it had to do with the LA Grimsley report.
I
Well,
think Andy's always testified he never told him. Even
Well,
that conversation.
didn't you say that when he came in he was white as a ghost?
I think I said he looked like he had heard about the report that our names were in, a report that was false that our name was in.
And well, so your testimony is that Pettit never told you until you were sitting with Mr. Hardin or during that period right after the Mitchell report came out that McNamee had injected HGH?
Andy never told me.
Well, you learned at that point, is that correct?
I did.
So your testimony is that when he came to you and asked you in either 2005 or thereabouts in Kissimmee or Atlanta, whichever it was,
Right,
what you were going to say, he did not tell you that McNamee had injected him for his elbow recovery.
I don't believe so.
Okay. So back to my question, if you have, do you have any reason, any explanation that you can come up with that that's in any way you've ever thought about or that you can have here today that gives me any information as to why Mr. McNamee would lie about you and tell the truth about Knobloch and Pettit?
Object to the form.
You can answer.
I don't.
Clearly, you were a much more important client of his than Pettit or Knobloch, right?
Objective form.
I disagree with that.
Oh, really? You don't think you were more important to McNamee and his career and his finances than Pettit and Knobloch?
I think both of them were fine players in their own right.
Well, I'm talking about as clients of McNamee. I'm not talking about players. I'm talking about as people McNamee trained or involved with in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I would again disagree with that. I don't know how many different people he trained. He said he trained lots of people.
Do you remember withdrawn? All right. So, it would be fair to say that apart from you asserting that it's the truth, you had every reason in the world to deny your use of steroids and performance-enhancing drugs. Isn't that fair to say?
Objective form.
You can answer.
I don't know that I understand that. Please.
Well, apart from the fact that you say it's the truth that you didn't get injected with these PEDs, you had every reason in the world, you had every interest to deny that you were injected. Isn't that right?
I didn't use performance-enhancing drugs, so again, I was defending myself against statements made by one individual.
Well, whether or not you actually did use them or be injected with them, you had every reason, you had every interest, you had every bias to deny it, right? Because it was going to affect you adversely.
Objective form.
The accusation would. Isn't that correct?
Again, I didn't use them, so.
All right. So it certainly, you knew perfectly well that if it was shown that you used these drugs, you would never get into the Hall of Fame, for one thing, right?
Again, the Hall of Fame is something that wasn't a concern of mine when I was playing ball.
Okay. Well, it was a concern to you, wasn't it, from the emails we looked at earlier where Mr. McNamee says to you he's never going to rat out his clients, he's never going to flip.
Objective.
It was a concern to you, wasn't it, about your contracts and your deals?
Excuse me. Objective form.
Yeah. You had a concern about your contracts and your deals, right?
Again, I think that I was talking about the Grimsley report in the LA Times falsely stating, making comments about me that weren't true, and
Right.
I was upset that, yes, if I lost some.
Yeah, that would you might lose deals if those false accusations had come out and they weren't proven false. If they'd been proven true, you would have lost a bunch of deals, right?
They were proven false, yes.
Right, but you would have lost deals if they were proven true.
I don't know that, but
That's what
again,
you worried about.
that I let people know that they weren't true, and it was proven to be not true.
You made about $120+ million in contracts with over your career. Isn't that correct? About.
Again, your guess is better than mine.
And you made a lot of money, millions of dollars on various, associating your name with various products and various promotions and various other contract deals, commercial deals. Is that correct?
I've had off the field income, yes.
And that's been based on your fame and your accomplishments.
I would say yes to that.
And to the extent your fame and your accomplishments were sullied or tarnished by steroids or performance-enhancing drugs, that would undermine your future as a brand. Isn't that right? As an exploitable brand.
Somebody making false accusations about me definitely would not help.
Well, if they were true, it wouldn't help either, right?
And well, they're not true, so that wouldn't help.
Right. But it wouldn't help even if they were true. If it's clearly true, it would hurt your brand even worse than if they were false, right?
Again, they're not true, and I'm, again, trying to defend myself.
There are other aspects of your life that would be adversely affected if these accusations were true also, right? You're getting invited to golf tournaments, you're getting invited to premieres, you're going around the country and attending all kinds of important social events and things like that. That would change dramatically if these things were true.
I think that has to deal with more my foundation and my, if you will, public life off the field and my community work and things of that nature when I get asked to do things.
But if you're labeled a cheater because of steroids or PEDs, it affects your brand, right? It undermines your brand.
Object to the form.
You can answer.
Again, defending myself against accusations that aren't true,
Well, you have been hurt financially in very serious ways, have you not, by these accusations?
I would say yes to that. I don't, to what extent, I don't know. I would have to get other professional people to look into that.
And if you were admitted to the Hall of Fame, you would have more opportunities for these kind of endorsement and other promotional deals that would capitalize on your fame and your accomplishments.
Not sure about that.
Okay. But you certainly did recognize, did you not, that the name Roger Clemens and the accomplishments of Roger Clemens were a brand that could be sold?
I was able to get some off-field endorsements and activities through playing baseball over 24 years, yes.
Right, and I think we've established that that was compromised or diminished by these accusations. Is that correct?
It could have been.
Right, and you were very worried about that around the time of the Mitchell report and the congressional hearings. Is that correct?
As far as the LA Times report goes?
No, I'm talking about the accusations in the Mitchell report and the accusations made by Mr. McNamee.
The Mitchell report, I was just trying to figure out what was going on.
Well, when you went before Congress, you weren't trying to figure out what was going on, were you?
I wasn't.
You were trying to clear your name.
I think I made a statement to defend myself, yes.
Right, and you insisted on going before Congress to clear your name, correct?
I knew I was going to end up visiting with Congress.
Right, and you had a chance not to go before Congress, but you chose to go before Congress to make your assertions.
Not sure that I chose.
Well, you weren't subpoenaed to go before Congress, were you? Nobody forced you.
Object to the form.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, the night before you went before Congress, isn't it a fact that Mr. Waxman's people, the chair of that committee, called up and said, he doesn't have to come, I don't want him to come, but you insisted on coming?
Object to the form.
Again, I don't know what was told to Rusty and the...
Well, from your point of view, I'm not talking about Mr. Hardin. I'm sure he would have communicated any offer to you not to have to go before Congress, and you decided to go before Congress when you had the option not to. Is that correct?
Object to the form.
I'm not sure about the option not to. I believe that there was going to be a report filed regardless, and so I had an opportunity to go and try and defend myself.
And you had the option not to go and defend yourself, even though a report would be filed.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Mr. Clemens, you had, we're doing all right? We have a little bit? How long? 15? Okay. You attribute the success in your latter part of your career, which got you to the point where you had 356 wins and over 3,000 innings pitched and over 2,500 strikeouts, 7 Cy Youngs. You attribute the latter part of that very, very amazing and successful career to your hard work. Is that correct?
Don't know the numbers that you just stated. I'm not sure about the numbers, but I worked hard my entire career.
You don't know your own numbers of achievements in a game that's filled with numbers?
I don't. I know I won 7 Cy Youngs.
Right. And you don't know that you had 356 wins?
I don't think I had 356 wins.
Really?
I think I had 352, if I'm guessing.
Well, you may be right. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe I'm wrong.
You know you had over 3,000 innings pitched, right?
I don't know how many innings.
All right. How about strikeouts? You know how many strikeouts you had?
Over 4,000.
4,000 strikeouts?
I think so.
Oh, I thought it was 2,500 and plus. You think it was 4,000 strikeouts?
Well,
We'll look it up.
You have me doubting.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe you're right and I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I thought it was 2,560 or something like that.
Doubting, so again, I don't know the numbers.
Just look at that up, would you, for me? Thank you. I want to be correct about this. I'm sorry if I wouldn't want to diminish your achievements for a second. And it's your testimony that none of the success had anything to do in the latter part of your career with any performance-enhancing drugs that you took.
Correct.
Okay. And, okay. Let's take a short break, and I'll figure out what I'm going to do, and we'll go
Fair
from
enough.
there. Okay?
Sure.
Good.